thank you for your attendance in this random discussion about societal issues, if you will. This was a very spontaneous video, which I didn't intend on making, but usually when I make a YouTube video, I make it either make the video, then upload it, or I make it as I'm doing it live, but I let people know ahead of time. In this case, it's a Sunday night, it's getting kind of late, and I don't expect anyone to really attend. However, I find that doing it in kind of a live format allows me to interact with more people, and therefore I'm making the attempt to do a live cast at the same time as making a podcast for my 15-minute free thinking podcast. And it's because it's Sunday night. It's been a long few weeks I've had off of work. Basically, my boss went to Mexico, so I had a couple weeks off, and I've still gone up and worked up in Kalama here for a day or two in that time. But for the most part, I've been a lazy bum for the last week, 2 weeks, and I haven't done shit. I've made videos, I've talked about life, I've watched stupid movies I've seen twice, television shows, YouTube, and got sucked into the basic bullshit that we all do in our day-to-day life. And I've been doing a lot of thinking about that, about just how distracted we are by social media, and just how distracted we are by stupid shit that we see on the news that we know is really not important to us. But when I started this video, the title obviously is kind of a joke. I'm not a guru. I don't consider myself Guru Carpo. That's not the kind of person I am. But it was kind of a nod to all the idiots out there who consider themselves influencers. Those who made a YouTube channel or an Instagram account or a Facebook account, got a bunch of viewers, and decided, well, what I have to say must be true, and therefore, since I'm famous, I'm going to continue to spread it around. And anyway, that's I guess what you would call hubris and arrogance on the part of people, that fame makes your opinion valuable. But I guess my point here is that I don't ever want to become that kind of person. And the guru title is just kind of a nod to the joke, that nothing I say is any more valuable than anything you have to say. And the older we get, the more we understand that other people around us don't know any more than we do. That's a hard one for people to understand. I mean, it's truly hard to embrace the fact that even some of the most wise people we know, some of the greatest thinkers, had extreme shortcomings and pitfalls within their thinking. And that's just by my opinion. Mind you, I'm not saying that other people know any, less than I do. I'm saying that other people have different opinions about what's important. We have many different philosophical thinkers through history that had some great ideas, and we tend to kind of reflect on those people. But at the same time, you can only go so far with it. In other words, you start to find that, well, this particular angle of this person's viewpoint doesn't agree with what I think. And then we start to say, well, this person doesn't know what the fuck they're talking about, and we dismiss them completely on one point. But the funny thing is, it wasn't like that historically. If a philosopher had a slightly different viewpoint, people would interact and talk about that. People would figure out how we can overcome our differences, instead of finding the one flaw within thinking that negated everything else the person had to say. A great example for me would be Christianity. I remember about 20 years ago, I bought a book, and it was called somebody had actually recommended I buy it long after I already had it. They're like, you need to read this. And it was, damn it, if I can't remember. It's a very popular book that's a pretty short read. It's a fiction book, I think, but it is a discussion of somebody's, I guess, as they became a Christian or their awakening into Christianity. And I found that a lot of people kind of reference this book. And the more I guess I tried to understand other people, try to understand intentions. I see that everybody's looking for a hero, that everybody's looking for somebody that they can quote, somebody that they can relate to, somebody that at least they can have the illusion of relating to, and to feel like they're part of something greater because somebody that they respect has an opinion that they share. And fuck, that's a tricky one, man. Hitler did the same thing. You know, I mean, I hate to use that comparison, but it's very other people. At about 7 minutes in, I figure I'll say hi to the people that I see here. Hello, Leslie. Welcome. Hello, Victor. Or Vector. Vector says, and this is great because I mentioned this the other day. He says, "Do as thou wilt, that shall be the whole of the law." I believe that's bullshit. No offense to you. I know it's just a quote. Aleister Crowley used that one. And I believe that there's one point that needs to be added to that. Do what thou shalt wilt, so long as no others are harmed in the process. That shall be the whole of the law. And that's something I can agree with. It's tricky when other people are harmed. Leslie says, I watched Gone with the Wind for the first time the other day. Wow, that's really funny. That's a great story, and the book was phenomenal. I haven't read it. My wife loves it. Kind of like Roots. You know, when you read the book, it's bigger than the story that you can get in a movie. But it's funny you say that because what was it? A show I was watching where they were talking about the Gone with the Wind. Oh, this kid who, okay, this is crazy, but he's just some random video I watched where this kid, he started talking about how he believed he was a writer, and from a very young age he was one of those, let's just get into say reincarnation kids, right? There's certain kids that have these attributes you just can't, explain. And when his parents said he was born on August 19th, he said no, and he got mad and said he was born on the 26th. He also said his mom's name was Jennifer, but he said that was his daughter's name, and all these different things. And finally, they started naming off all the books because they got it down to the point where they said he's a writer, or at least he claimed he was a writer in Hollywood, but he was young, so it was hard to get it out of him. And they named off all these movies, and they got to Gone with the Wind, and he sat up and he's like, "Yeah, I wrote that." And they looked up the writer for Gone with the Wind, and he had a birth date of August 26th. He had all the attributes that the kid had claimed to have, and that's the weirdest thing, because I'm not a believer in full-blown one-on-one reincarnation, but I do believe that spirits can carry on and do have unfinished business, so that's a really weird one, and it trips me out. But Gone with the Wind, yeah. That's a total side rant on that one, but it's a good movie. It is. Leslie says you have good words of wisdom. Thank you. Hello, HRC. Ha. Says ha. Chris says Lucy. Lucy. Hello, David. Hello, Biff. Hello. Oh, whoops. Hello, Freestyler. Good to see you, my friend. And Chris says, hey Josh, hey guys, good to see you all. All right, cool. now everybody has been answered, and now I'm going to move on. Look, I'm trying to navigate a very difficult world in the last few years. And I guess just bouncing this off of people live is why I do these lives. I know there's only 8 people out there, and I love that because I know all of you are at least paying attention for the most part. I want to know what people really think about this reparations thing in San Francisco. And I know you all know what I'm talking about. And since we are a little community here, I'm sure that you can talk about how you truly feel without feeling ostracized. There was a committee put in charge of deciding reparations for San Francisco, for, yes, the black community, for slavery, right? Now, yes, first off, anybody who's aware of history says, wait a minute, San Francisco never had slavery. In fact, it was it wasn't allowed by their own state constitution. That's beside the point. There were also, let's just say there were redlining issues, all kinds of, races that were ostracized from taking loans, all different types of issues we had. That's not in denial. But a committee was put in charge for the city to decide how to give reparations and what the best course would be. And they came up with a list of 100 different ideas. And they said you could use some or all of these ideas. Now, the first one you probably saw in the news is a check for $5 million for every black citizen of San Francisco because of the travesties that they have encountered. Now, I stepped back with this. $5 million. I didn't know what to think. I thought, is this a joke? But another one was to eliminate personal debt and tax burdens for all black people. Another one was a guaranteed $97,000 a year for 250 years for any black citizens of San Francisco. And yes, there was a list. You had to prove that you'd been there at least 10 years, that you had black ancestors that were affected by redlining, whatnot. One of them was that you had a black ancestor that was affected by the drug war. And I started thinking, wow, how many people were affected by the drug war? I mean, one of the other things that they wanted for reparations was homes in San Francisco for $1 per family in a state that never had slavery. And I kind of feel like a dick for even bringing this up, but isn't this something we should all talk about? So, for example, when a council of 15 people who are put in charge of figuring out how can we make things okay for all black people in San Francisco for the hardships they've endured, the most, the best idea they come up with is $5 million per citizen. Now, mind you, I realize this can be blown out of proportion by the media. I did a little research deeper into it and watched them double down on this. As one of the members said, the council members said, he said, well, you can't put a price, on the suffering. I agree. But $5 million? Where's that money going to come from? It's not about money. And the problem we have is looking at everything like paying off the problems we have. Racism has improved immensely in this country. Sexism, divisions of wage, fairness and equality. The fact that a person can actually sue somebody if they discriminate against them. These are things that didn't always exist, and we don't even give acknowledgement to that. It seems like everybody just wants to fight, say, you're a liberal, you're a conservative, and it just gets pretty pathetic, but I get it. But my thought was when they said, how do we give reparations? As somebody pointed out so succinctly, they said, how about we take the BLM funding? Now, look, don't get me wrong. I'm not a right-winger. I'm not a conservative. I'm a liberal. But what I looked into was the fact that the funding for the BLM protests, the founders of BLM ended up buying a mansion, if you will. They bought an actual mansion and they claimed it was to help black community and whatnot. But the point is, there were so many millions of dollars made that could have helped these communities in real time. But there's one thing that we find is that absolute power corrupts absolutely, and you can't get away from it. And there's an appeal to authority, but these days there's more of an appeal to ignorance, that we're willing to believe everybody else knows what's best. We kind of have a mob mentality. And that's why it's so important that we think for ourselves. It's so important and so critical that we learn who to trust and make sure we still trust people, that we don't leave friends behind and ignore the whole of society just because some of us are total shitbags. Because, mind you, there are plenty of fucking assholes out there. But they're all complicated topics, I guess. I agree with you, Leslie. Do no harm and respect free will. Hello, Chris. Where are we at here? Okay, good. No comments, no questions. That makes it simple. And like I say, honestly, what drives me to make podcasts and live casts is the interaction with people. If you just want to hear what I have to say, that's fine. But I love comments and responding to them, because it's almost a way for me to be caught off guard with questions. It's hard for me to sit here by myself and come up with ideas. And sometimes when I make a live cast, I think this is good. Somebody's calling me out on something. So feel free. The lines are open, so to speak. I'm going to be honest, I've made about, I don't know, a dozen videos in the last week or so. And I've only made probably 4 of them public. But I don't know why. Some weeks I'm inspired to make videos, and it's probably because I haven't been working, and I get a little stir crazy, a little neurotic. I'm not Max Headroom, I swear. But yeah, I tend to get a little crazy when I don't work. And I think, mind you, a lot of people, most people, if not all people, get a little neurotic when they're not actually doing day-to-day functioning work, whether it's for yourself or for others. And I find people can drive themselves nuts. Maybe this is why we have so many problems these days. So many people don't feel like their jobs matter. And that makes it hard, because I think I watched something the other day where they said only 1 in 100 people really say they have a job they actually love. Now, I don't believe that. I'm sure it's more than that, to be honest, because they're, giving people credit. But at the same time, I worked as a carpenter for years. I was kind of forced into it. It's what I did. And then I quit because my back gave out. Sciatic pain fucked me up. I started selling kratom online, herbs, and I loved what I did for a while. And then eventually I didn't like it anymore. I wasn't loving selling herbs. And the fucked up thing is that I was actually making really good money. And I had access to the really good kratom and different herbs. I was making mushroom blends and capsules. And then something just hit home. I don't want to do this. I want to physically work. So I kind of just faded away from doing it. And then I started looking for a job building tiny homes, because I have a school bus. Most of you know that. I built myself and converted it into an RV type area. Could be better, could be worse. But what I'd like to do is, learn how to do tiny homes, get a property, build tiny homes on the property, and make kind of a KOA for hippies, a kind of a retreat, rent them out, whatnot. And since I already have a basic building technique and skill, I'd love to go work for this guy who builds them on trailers. So for about the last year, I've been working for a guy, down in Oregon, where I drive to each day. It's about a 15-minute drive, not bad, 15 miles, 20 miles. And we build tiny homes on wheels, 30 footers. They're between 24 and 30 foot. and like 13 feet tall. We get them to the maximum we can to transport without, like, where we can still get under bridges and whatnot. But it is, it's so much more rewarding to do something that's hands-on. And I feel like so many people need a job that they feel good about. And the thing that this job really resonates is I literally looked on Craigslist and said, I wanted a job that was building tiny homes. And I found the second job on all the listings. I don't even think I refined the search. It was like I was looking in carpentry and it was like tiny home builder wanted or apprentice, you know, 25 to 35 an hour or something. And I went to meet the guy, total hippie dude. Instantly loved the job, met him and his wife or girlfriend. They're like 60 or so. Really nice people and been working there like a year. The thing is, I don't get paid. So last Friday, I went and worked for another client building like working on this dome, and I really love this place. It's like up in the Clamor River. But for that job, a standard wage is $60 an hour, for example. And that's actually the same price my bosses were charging 20 years ago. So it's much less than a carpenter usually will get for a job like that. But I like the people and I like where I'm working. So I'm giving her a fair wage. And then the job I'm working at, where I work daily, 4 days a week, I'm only getting $30 an hour, which is half of what I get, say, working for myself. Which, for some people they'd say, well, holy shit, that's a lot of money anyway. But I've earned it. I've worked for that. I've developed my skills in carpentry, making $7, $8 an hour to bust my ass and fuck my back up and my knees and everything else. So, I've learned to make those skills work for me. And my point here isn't to brag about my skills, but rather to say that today we're losing that. People don't want to learn how to do real work anymore. Kids want to be fucking gamers or, uh, you know, famous YouTube or TikTokers. They want to be influencers. And I've heard so many people in their late teens say, I want to be an influencer. And it's like, for what? What do you want to influence people to do? You know, this is not a skill. This is not something that will endure. But, it's money and I get it. I understand that. But, it's a weird time to be alive, I guess. Jekyll Island, Chris says. Federal Reserve. Yes. The creature from Jekyll Island. Yeah, that's where they print all your money. Large homes. Yeah. Yes, my friend. I absolutely can and have. We've built everything from the foundation up. When I've worked in construction since about 98. Yeah, about 96, 95, 94 maybe, actually. I was 18. So, anyway, yeah, it 85, 95, 93, 94. Yeah, about 94 when I started doing construction. Doesn't matter. But I worked for a friend of mine who got me a job doing remodeling. Then ended up working for another guy. And then I worked for another dude and decided to get my own license. I went out and got a contractor's license, got license bonded and insured. Started doing finished carpentry, doing handrails, custom cabinetry. Ended up working for a guy in the West Hills doing like custom cabinets and kitchens for like this historic home and a couple of his friends. And really, like, I've done everything with wood, like fancy. All the drawers were dovetailed out of solid wood, and it was a huge amount of work. But let's just say that it taught me a lot about the value of being good at what you do and enjoying what you do. And it's funny because I didn't talk about carpentry for years on YouTube after that, even though I have skills to build like really fine furniture. And it was because I didn't feel secure, or I felt insecure rather, because my back was fucked up. And as a man, when your back gets fucked up, you feel like less of a man. Doesn't matter how you look at it. At the time, I was working for a guy in the West Hills. We had just jacked a house up that was falling down on a hill. I mean, we'd got it all pimped out, put a new floor in, everything on the interior, and I was just putting a final deck on the back made of Trex deck, which is like a plastic decking composite, they call it. And my back started hurting so bad, and I just said, I'm gonna have to quit. He's like, oh, come back when you're feeling better. I'm like, no, I'm quitting carpentry, and I did for like 8 years or something. And my back was hurting so bad. If I've ever had sciatic pain, it was going down my leg, all the way down my butt cheek, down my front of my shin, down to my big toe. I couldn't walk. My wife had to help me into the bathtub one time. It was so bad. So, if you've had that, you understand. If not, I won't even try to explain. But I said, after that, I can't lift anything anymore. And maybe this is a great segue into being a man, the discussion I wanted to have for the young men out there. I don't know how many of you are young men, but I know I have some female audience as well, but hopefully this benefits you too. I know that on Google Analytics, it says my audience is like 97% men. So, hey, I'm speaking to the guys for the most part. Anyway, being a man requires a rite of passage, whatever that might be. Going camping with a senior friend or family member or a father. If you don't, if you don't have a father, it would be somebody in your life that's important. I'm not going to say psychedelics are important to that, but let's just say that that is really sitting over here on the top of the list. And for a totally different discussion, I guess we could talk about psychedelics if you want, but really it's about letting young men know that they're powerful within themselves and that they're not just a number. And I think this is important for all people. Just teaching people how to live their own lives. Realize that there's going to be good times and bad, and not be such a fucking weenie about it. You know what I mean? Um, People are so easily bothered by the little things in life that get us down. You just think about the stupid, petty things that people argue about. We can all enjoy our lives, but real change, real effectiveness takes dedication and time. So, like when I got my carpentry license, it took me time. But that was honestly when I took the test, and this was the point. It was mostly just tax info and bullshit that didn't relate to building at all. So, in other words, if you hire a contractor to work on your house, if you think that contractor has to know anything at all about construction, you are completely mistaken. Every single question on that test for the contractor's test is related to taxes, zoning, and that kind of shit, legal requirements. And on top of, because that's just what it's all about. They want their money, but also construction products change. They can't have they can't test you on everything because they don't know what you're going to be doing. But so you have a guy show up and he wants to do a job for you and he doesn't know a goddamn thing. But the employees are the ones that bust their asses and get the knowledge. And I was one of the employees that worked for contractors that didn't know shit and ended up showing them up by running my own company. And eventually now I am back to working for another guy. I should make a note of why here. The cost to be licensed, bonded, and insured as an independent carpenter and to rent a space, my boss pays $4,000 a month for big enough for two tiny homes. Right now, we don't have a customer to buy the one we have, and so the other one's empty, and he's paying $2,000 a month. This is money that's eating into the profits, and it's overhead for the company terms. For the technical term for it is overhead can be extremely expensive for a business. You've got to get business cards. You got to get a website, right? You got to pay somebody to set up that website. You've got to, and this is super frustrating these days with people who want to run their own business doing ethical wood designs and stuff, right? There's like 50 to 100 there. And I don't know how to sell them. It's like this border of A to B to set up a site on Etsy or somewhere else, even, right? Then you have to pay them their fees. Then you have to pay the fees to the payment processor, PayPal. Fuck PayPal. I hate you, PayPal. Then you have to also pay for shipping and everything else. It's like you'd rather do direct interactions because we're living in a world of such distant, communication that we can't just sell something locally. Although Saturday Market's open now, and I gotta go down there and check that out. Sell shit on the side of the road. So, ooh, that's grapefruit soda. It's grapefruit Izzy soda, but it's unique. My wife's brother, so my brother-in-law works for a bottling company, and he gets free sodas and drinks, and he doesn't drink them. So my wife brought home like 170 energy and drinks and sodas and sparkling waters. Mostly like all the fancy brands, like Celsius and Rockstar. And it was crazy. I was looking at them and adding up the price. It's like, that's like $500 worth of energy drinks. It's crazy what people will pay for that shit. But this one's just grapefruit flavoring and water and sparkling carbonation. So, CO2, whatever. And some kind of sweetener that's probably going to kill me faster than sugar ever did. What do you do about that, right? I feel like everything we eat's just killing us. I don't really know how to do anything about that. So, hello, Anon. Excuse me. Anon says, "Hey, Carpo, just wanted to say, when, if the so-called apocalypse happens, and should it all go dark, we can never chill on live streams again. I wish you the best and hope you will prosper." You know what, brother? Thanks, man. I fucking second that notion. That's a great thing to say. I've had friends that I've said the same thing to. In fact, just a few weeks ago, I was talking with my buddy Kevin and Scott Skule. They live out in, across. So I live in Vancouver, Washington. So to get to their house, I have to go across the Columbia River, across the Glen Jackson Freeway, which is like a 4-mile freeway, which is a low freeway that goes over and it has several different landing points over the Columbia River, which has a dam upstream, a few, but the Bonneville Dam isn't too far. So if there's, say, a quake or something major happened here, there'd be no way to get over there. But honestly, beyond that, then you go down Highway 84 interstate, and then you have to cross the Willamette River and then go through Portland again to get to his house. And they were like, well, if something ever happens, we got to find a place to hook up. And I'm like, well, dude, I'm going to be at home. He's like, but we got to find a meeting spot. I'm like, dude, you guys are both single. Well, my buddy Kevin's got a wife, but Scott's, single. I was like, I'm not packing up my car with my kids and my wife and driving meet somebody somewhere. I was like, my house is the meeting spot. It's the apocalypse zone. We've got the electronic shutters and the hydraulic, rams and explosives and full-blown RPG grenade launchers and shit to defend our home. No, I'm kidding. Actually, we'd be kind of fucked. I do have some emergency supplies, but it ain't much. But I've always thought about that, if something really did happen. See, you got me all thinking about the apocalypse now. But that cabin in the woods, is it the ground? Rain will be a problem? No, it's a little bit above the ground. It's been there for years, probably a few decades. They're going to put a subfloor or just I talked them into doing vinyl flooring in the interior, and I'm just going to do whatever I can to make it work. They want to turn it into kind of a rental area. I need to tell her about the mold factor if they want to rent it or anything, but there's a lot of work to do there. It's going to be an endless fucking job. I'm going to go every week for a day or two until we get it done. And that might be time, but, it's kind of going to be, I don't know, kind of a artist retreat type place, and I'm glad to be part of it. So we'll see what happens, and I'll be sharing a lot about it when it does happen. Rain won't be a problem, but I need to help them improve some of that shit. And that's just the thing, when I walk up to a house or a building and I'm able to look at something and assess what it needs. You know, it doesn't necessarily mean I'm not the go-getter kind of guy who like fixes every single problem on our house when I get there and like, this needs to be fixed and this and this. I'm not, I'm very particular about the most important things. Usually that starts from the top down. You check out the roof, you check out the, make sure nothing's leaking inside the house, first of all, of course. But just kind of working your way down and realizing that certain issues, like a slightly rotten doorway, doesn't necessarily have to be repaired right away. But being able to assess a property and say, this is pretty sound, it'll hold up, I think is a great thing. So for that cabin in the woods, on a side note, that cabin right up the way from that is a little sawmill. And I don't know if they use that to build the cabin or not, but they can cut their own lumber on site and stack it and then come back. There's a huge garden area that has deer-proof fencing. And then there's the geodome, which is like, I don't know, 50 feet, across, that I just put the door in. So now they can keep raccoons out. But I also kept all the rats and mice out. And I'm really stoked to go back and help her finish because she got some live edge countertop for this bar. The one of the girls who owns land, there's like a few people, 3 people I think, and they owned a cannabis shop, or she owned a weed shop, down in Vancouver beforehand. She took her shares and invested with a couple other people in this property. Now they're trying to turn it into kind of a retreat type place where people can come. So it's like being part of kind of a new, I don't know, PRM or whatever it is, a private company, PRC or something, where it's a membership only kind of company, where it's not open to the public, which that's pretty dope too. I mean, being able to, you can evade certain taxes that way, let's just say. As long as people are willing to sign a waiver. To get there, you have to, it's a new road that no average car is going to make it up. It's like a 4-wheel drive, so they have a Toyota Tacoma with big old tires on it just for that road. Goes up over like 2 big hills and then down to where the cabin and stuff is. It's like right on the Kalama River, totally private, very isolated. I'd love to help her build like a sweat lodge on the property. I think it'd be fucking dope. It'd be so cool. Yeah. Anyway, I'm gonna get hungry soon, but I'm gonna do a little bit more of this podcast. I wanted to talk about appeal to authority and experts, but I don't. If there's anything any of you want to hear about, let me know. Other than that, it's hard to talk about expertise. I think I made a video about it the other day, and how like in the world of like particle physics, there are people who just get so frustrated that their colleagues make claims about particles that really aren't proven and act as if it's true. But how the average population, they don't know. And there's no way for them to actually argue against a particle physicist because fuck, you're a dumbass if you do that. But other particle physicists will say, no, that's not true. And I was thinking about that as the appeal to authority, the same way with everything, different sciences, religion too, politics, somebody who's like, the president shouldn't be able to do this or that. And they're like, no, that has to go through Congress. And they're like, well, I didn't know that because they weren't aware of that, and we're all trying to kind of understand and learn how these systems work so we can be better armed to discuss things. And I don't know, it's just a weird time to be a little one another. And I think what we want to do when it comes really down to it, it has nothing to do with politics or religion. It comes down to consistency and truth. Being able to consistently know that we know what matters, that our facts that are important are the most important facts and nobody else's matter. Not everybody feels that way, obviously. I mean, my thought is this: if half the people feel differently than I do, I better check myself and ask myself why. Whenever somebody says something like, this or this is like taking over people's, thoughts. I'm like, well, why then? Why are these things happening? What is the reason behind something being viral, if you will, or important to people? And usually you find because people think alike. And that's not always a bad thing. It's not just being sheep. I hate that term. It's people like, when people follow certain patterns in life, it's not always because they're sheep. It's because they like consistency. They like to know that there are experts on certain topics, that they can wake up in the morning, get into their car, and drive to work without their car exploding or just falling out on the road because experts were behind putting that together. They want to make sure that experts were the ones who, created the components to build those parts and build that car. Trusting that experts built the building that they work in properly. And that comes back to just being a carpenter and saying, I like to do things right. And there's something to be, I don't know, a certain amount of pride that you can hold when you do something physical that you can hold in your hand, but also just helping other people. It's not about doing physical labor. That's not what I'm saying. My wife's a server, and she's like the best, man. her, you know, her customers love her because she is a fucking cool person. She's sweet, she's kind, and she's patient. Something you can't say for everyone. A lot of people just suck. A lot of people aren't patient. A lot of people aren't kind. And I've gone out to eat and gone out to, go shopping and had really extremely rude people serve me. And so, yeah, being a good person, I guess, is important. There's nothing to gain from being an asshole, right? I think I need to turn up my screen here so I can see better. Here we go. I'm going to go pretty quick, but thanks for coming along with me, yo. Needs a lot of work. Yes, sir. PMA. Sheep is a compliment, a good comparison. It wasn't supposed to be named. The Lord is the shepherd, and we are his flock. Interesting you say that. Okay, so that's funny. No, I'm not going to diss religion. I'm going to say it's funny because the idea of sheep being Jesus's flock, I thought about this, and a long time ago, I put together a diagram, and I wrote it down in one of my journals, and I should grab it, but I'm not going to because that would just be awkward and take forever. But I wanted to say, okay, so what are the components of a ranch or a farm, right? So I found, okay, we've got the shepherd, we've got the sheep, we have the fence. So the sheep are the people, right? The fence is the government. The wolves are the, those trying to rip you off. Then we've got the pigs. I guess you could get into the whole dogs, pigs, sheep thing from Pink Floyd, but I wrote this whole list of all how my response is always the same. It's the stupid half-witty comment of, wouldn't you rather be a shepherd than a wolf? You know? The wolf wants to eat the sheep, attack the sheep, make them feel like shit, whatever it might be. But the shepherd wants to say, hey, I'm going to take you under my wing and teach you things. And I've always tried to be the kind of person who doesn't scold people because they don't know or because they're dumb or acting like idiots. You're not going to help people by being an asshole to them. You know what I mean? And every individual is going to learn things at their own rate. I've been through so many different fucking thought patterns in my life, and it's really hard to vocalize some of the thoughts I have. Every time I make a video, it's difficult, but when I make a podcast, it's even harder without sounding like an idiot. Like if I sit here and tell you Neil deGrasse Tyson is a total fucking douchebag, that sounds so arrogant. People love that guy, obviously. And I just say that because I have it on my notes in front of me because I was talking about part of it, and how he's totally disrespected by so much of the scientific community because it's not curiosity anymore, it's hubris. He was known to say philosophy is dead, we don't need it. What kind of an idiot scientist says we don't need philosophy, right? And so new discoveries kind of change how we think. There's experts on everything. Believe me, they were experts on cigarettes in the 60s telling you that they're healthy for you, and more doctors smoke Camels. Thumbs up, bro. You know, that's the fact of history. But, oh man, I feel like this kind of surface, very generic version of information is what we get these days. And most people are more than happy to listen to Neil deGrasse Tyson lecture on how to live their lives. But, you know, there's experts on cigarettes, there's experts on everything, experts on medicine, there was experts on drugs. Hey, take some OxyContin. But there was actually, hey, there's experts on crypto. If you guys aren't aware that you can invest in Dogecoin, that's a topic all its own. I wonder how certain people, you know, I've had discussions about cryptocurrency with people in the past. I told my son get rid of it, and he did, and thank God he would have lost his ass. But it's not that people can't make money off crypto. It's that when most people invest in crypto, they're going to lose their ass. The statistics show that people are going to win, but most people are going to lose. And it shouldn't be that volatile. And it just pissed me off when I found out that, you know, so many people got fucked over by some of these companies. And I remember hearing about FTX and, you know, people promoting that on commercials. All these celebrities invest in FTX, and then overnight it collapses, right? Well, the same thing, of course, with the banks the other day. I don't want to get into that because I'm not speculative. I know enough about the Federal Reserve and how we pay off banks to know that the end is not nigh just because, you know, Silicon Valley Bank failed. That's a totally irrelevant over here story. But it is fascinating to me and hilarious. I think it's funny. 95% of their deposits were over 250 grand because they were startups and businesses. These businesses had chosen to invest with this bank because they were told to. Many of them were required to by the conditions. And this bank had invested in junk bonds that, well, not junk bonds, but bonds that would pay out nothing compared to when the interest rate went up. Then other people got bonds that paid more. Nobody wanted their bonds, and they basically lost billions of dollars of other people's money. This shouldn't happen, but it does happen because we live in a world of fucking greedy bastards, bankers who think that their job is important. You know what I mean? Like, your job is to handle my money, and you can. People don't understand a bank runs, that a bank only has to hold 10% of the actual currency that they're supposed to own. Working. This thing tends to fail a lot. I wonder if it's my new internet service. I got a few things I need to do anyway. I suppose I'll just stick around for a few more minutes. It hasn't even been an hour yet. I think I've rambled quite a bit. I started off talking about reparations for San Francisco, giving $5 million to every black person. Woo! Then I talked about appealing to authority, experts, my feelings on things, my kids, music. Have I talked about an ambivert yet? Introvert, extrovert, ambivert. It's good to talk about things. It really is. You know what this is over here? These are my notes. No, not just for this video. These are just notes for dozens of other videos. Oh, that's a picture. But I sometimes sit in my living room while I'm doing other things, listening to music, watching TV, just randomly, out of the blue. I hear something that's important to me, and I write it down. I have these little Billigins notepads that I use, and so I'll just write lists and lists of notes, and then I'll set these notes up all around me, and my system. Uh, to be perfectly honest, probably 2/3 of those notes that I have, probably 30 pages, 40 pages here, I've never shared. I've never even read again. I feel like it's important to write down your thoughts, to document them, and that you will benefit more from having thoughts that you've written down and physically used your hand to write, and then your brain will pick it up better. And that for me has been a godsend because I start remembering statistics and numbers and ideas. I have a huge file. I mean, these notes right here are probably from the last like 2 weeks, 3 weeks. I have hundreds of pages. And before that, it was poetry. And the point is not to brag. I want to make that clear. Makes me feel stupid. Kind of awkward, honestly, to have all those notes. Like, why am I taking all this time? And then I think about all the music I've written, and all the songs I've written, all the poems I've written, and they're all just sitting in folders. I've got huge tubs just full of all different types of shit like that I've written, that are songs that I want to make into music, and I never have. And it just goes to waste. And then I think about all the actual people who are actually good at writing, because I'm not that good. A lot of people are really good at writing lyrics, and their fucking lyrics just sit there like that, like poems just sitting in piles at their houses. Probably one of you out there, out of the 12 people watching at this moment, I'm sure one of you is probably a good writer, a good poet, good author. Embrace your talent and make it work. We're all good at different things. You know what I mean? So I can tell that I've burnt myself out here, and it's been about an hour, so I'm probably going to have to leave soon. I should flip through the comments again here to, need to connect. It's good to see you, my friend. Mental Mania all the way. Private Membership Association, PMA, thank you. And the Animal Farm. Yep. Daniel Wheeler, good to see you, my friend. Looks like my sheet. I have so many random notes like that. Too sick. Yeah, see, I'm glad I'm not the only one. It's not, I have not just those, but I have an actual leather, like, satchel that I bought, big fat one that I used to keep my journals in. Several different leather-bound journals. Some of them I write in once in a while. Some of them are recipes or passwords, whatever it might be, right? But one of them is this little journal. It's not even that thick. I don't know where it is right now, but I write in it once a year. I got it in my stocking when I was a kid in 1988. Wait, let me think. I think it was 1987. I was 12 years old, and I got it in my stocking. And I've used this journal. I wrote, in various times within it for the first few years, but eventually I got to the point, especially after I met my wife, when I was like 23, I was like, okay, I'm just going to start writing in this once a year. So once a year, I write a page in it. And I'm like, oh, this year I did this. So it's like, oh, COVID happened. Oh, I lost my job, whatever it might be that year. And when you look at it from that perspective and flip through it, I'm about halfway through my book, which is perfect for my age, midlife, right? But yeah, I think it's important to keep your journals and to keep in touch with who you are. And by looking back at your past and kind of acknowledging the mistakes we've made and the people we've been. I've made a lot of mistakes in my life, and I've also had a lot of successes. I think I scored pretty well with meeting my family, being able to know the people that I know, my friends. And all we can do is feel grateful. So thanks for coming along on my journey with life. I want to say that to my subscribers. I know the only people who watch this shit are the diehard fans, people who actually care about what I have to say, and I don't know why people do, but I'm grateful people care. I'm grateful that some people care. Then I ask myself, why am I grateful that people want to watch my channel? How arrogant. What hubris, you know. But it's not like that. I still feel awkward. I feel as long as I can acknowledge that awkwardness I have, I can still fulfill that desire for people to talk with me and interact with me and agree with me in some things and disagree in others. And as I would say, if you disagree with me on anything, please, please let me know. Because I love a good debate, but I never put people down or hate them for it. I don't take the ad hominem attack road or, call them names because of how they feel. Regardless, and I think a lot of people know that about me, but others don't. So thanks for coming along, and you can always leave your own thoughts on any of my videos. Time. Thanks, Dan. Yeah, I mean, and Luna. I don't recognize Luna, but thank you for coming along. But yeah, Dan, as far as the progress, I don't know if you're talking about my progress or others, but as far as my own personal progress, I can see my failures and my growth. There have been times where I've done better. I've been healthier and felt better than I do right now. I'm not going to say COVID set me back a notch, but I feel like during that time, I kind of became a little more attached to drinking a bit more. And I've been weaning myself off of that. I've also saved my kids and forced myself to get out and do more things, even get off my ass off the couch and just go for a walk. I mean, I do, but not nearly as often as I feel like I should. I feel like I should go out every night and take a walk. I mean, I've got a husky, right? There's an excuse. I put myself down. I'm constantly feeling like shit. And then I feel good. And then I feel like shit. Then I feel good. And, I think it's important to talk about that because a lot of people put on this kind of image like they're just always doing great. And that's bullshit. It's unhealthy. Not for them. If they're really that way, that's great. But for other people that look up to them and say, man, this guy's always stoked. Why is he always so happy? And this is especially prevalent on YouTube because you can see when people in your life, in your personal life, aren't doing well. But on YouTube, no. I'm uploading a video when I feel good. Sometimes I feel like shit and I don't share it. That's just reality. And the same goes for everyone. When I sit behind the camera and I talk to you just straight up like this, it's straight up. I don't edit or censor or clip or cut it. But when a lot of YouTubers do, it's very cut up. As you'll see a clip from point to point, and some of them are put together over multiple sessions. You just never know. But the honesty is what matters with all of us, and being able to talk about our lives and our problems, as well as our successes, our failures, benefits, risks, being a human being. It's crazy, isn't it? Isn't it weird being a human? Yeah. Anyway. Daniel says, oh, the progress in the journals and how it helps. Yes, exactly. I know what you mean. Progress in the journals, as far as writing down the things that you thought were important in the past, and then looking now and saying, well, hot damn, everything matters, every one of them. And yes, when I look at the progress, it is hard because when I see some things I've progressed at, I also see some things that I wish I still had. Like a youthful exuberance where I can just do anything I want, where I feel like I'm invincible, where I can go out and explore the whole world, not worry about what other people think. And, the world's my oyster, right? And then you start to think about retirement and you start to feel old and it sucks. But at the same time, it's all perspective. You don't have to make it suck. You've just got to be honest about it and not become obsessed about time. In fact, this was a major topic of discussion today. It was about quality of time. I don't recall if it was something I was listening to or watching, but recently it was about quality of time versus the amount of time you live on Earth. And of course, I've thought about this quite a bit. Like, I want to live a long life or a good life, and you could do both, of course. But generally, when I was younger, I always said I'm going to live to be at least 100. And I guess that was a safety mechanism. And I carried that until a few years ago. Then eventually I said, I just want to live to be happy. Or rather, when I die, I just want to be old enough to not leave anybody behind, but remain happy through my life. And that's all that matters. And I still feel that way. I don't care how old I live to be. And in fact, I don't care if tomorrow something happens, because it's nothing I can control. You know, fate is fate. I hope that I live a long life. I'd hope to be into my 80s or 90s, maybe even into hundreds, if we learn to reduce the decay of telomeres on the chromosomes and can figure out how to reverse aging. But honestly, I don't even know if I'd want to do that. I just want to be a happy person. That can be tricky. But I'm trying. I think we're all kind of trying. Anyway, I'll talk to you all next time. I'm going to go eat some dinner. Much love. Thanks for coming. I'll see you soon.